Did you know that long-term care insurance is the number one concern employees have that's not being met by their employers currently? So why is that? In this video, we are going to tell you. We're Shannon and Michael with Healthcare Genius, and we are here to provide you with the best information on healthcare and retirement. Please subscribe to our channel and click the bell to be notified when we come out with new videos.
Shannon, what is long-term care insurance?
So, start with the basics. Long-term care insurance is things like home health aid, nursing care, services that are provided that aren't necessarily tied to a health event like breaking your leg or getting sick, but that people need extra help for. And what it comes down to is actually 2 of 6 what we call activities of daily living. These are things like bathing, dressing, eating, getting around, different things that, whether it's due to old age or an accident, that some people need some extra help with.
I think I was that way on one of my days of my vacation a couple weeks ago.
Needed a little extra help. So the most common thing that we see in long-term care is old age. So whether it's putting your parents in a nursing home or having somebody come over and help them with some things a couple of times a day, that's kind of the most common thing. But what we're seeing is that people are needing it younger and younger. And one of those reasons is because we're seeing more and more cases of dementia and Alzheimer's. So that's a perfect example of when, unfortunately, younger people need long-term care assistance.
Yeah, Shannon, I had a classmate that a couple of years ago was diagnosed at 52 with early onset dementia. Another family member that had it starting at 53. So we're seeing more and more. And whether or not it's prevalent, I won't say it's prevalent, but the fact is when it does happen to somebody, it's catastrophic. That's really the important point to get across, is that you may or may not think it's going to happen to you, and the odds of it happening to you may be small, but if it does happen, it can completely destroy your financial plan and that of your family.
That's right. And if it happens when you're retired, that's one thing. And unfortunately, it does happen to, which is a staggering number, 60% of people at one point or another in their lives will need long-term care. But if it happens to you while you're working, you're not only talking about paying for long-term care, but also you now have the inability to work in a lot of cases. And so it can be catastrophic. Really, the big reason why this is a catastrophic event financially is because long-term care services are not covered by Medicare or by traditional health insurance. And that's really why people struggle to pay for these services when they need them. They're really expensive, and most people don't have the insurance coverage that they need. So that's why long-term care insurance is really important for a lot of people.
You're spot on. Again, seeing a number of situations with family and friends and clients even where this has happened. Those individuals that actually have policies to help pay for it, it's a savior really for them, because they're able to take care of their loved one, or the loved one at least feels secure that they purchased this policy or these types of policies and that they can take care of themselves and they're not a burden on the family. I think that's the biggest issue that a lot of people have, is they do not want to be a burden to their family. So when they're looking at these types of coverages, they're not necessarily doing it so much for themselves, but really for their family, to make sure that the resources are there to take care of them, so that the family member's not having to take off a job. We talk about this in a lot of our videos, that sandwich generation, where you've got women traditionally in their 50s who are still raising children, but also taking care of a parent or a grandparent.
Right, and we've seen study after study that shows the toll that caregiving can take on someone, and particularly when you have someone that's in that sandwich generation. And now most people have careers, and so it's not just about having the time or having the energy or wanting to do it, but it's really how many hours can you actually contribute to taking care of a loved one.
Yeah, there's a story on 60 Minutes where they followed, it was a New York police officer and his wife who developed early onset dementia. Google it, you should be able to find it on YouTube or on when you look at the internet. But it'll tell you and show the toll that Alzheimer's took on his life and that of his spouse. So pretty heart-wrenching So having some sort of a coverage is important. So let's talk a little bit about the coverages. So if you're an employer, you have the opportunity to really help your employees. As Shannon said at the beginning, employees want this benefit, they're looking for this benefit, but a lot of employers aren't offering it. So if you think of traditional long-term care insurance, there are some tax benefits that get attached to that. So an employer can actually pay for those benefits for their employees, and it's not taxable to the employee, which is huge. A lot of these plans will allow you to pay them up at 65, although there's not as many as there used to be. But they'll allow you to pay those plans up at a certain age so that when you get into retirement, you're not having to make premium payments. So that's the traditional long-term care. It'll pay a benefit. Even some of the newer policies offer a return of premium. I think the biggest concern you see, Shannon, right, is people thinking, well, what if I don't use it?
So that's great, Mike. So now that we know that there are huge tax benefits for the employee, can you talk to us a little bit about why traditional long-term care insurance is in many times the best option for the employer?
Absolutely, Shannon. Now, there's not many products, but there are a few out there where the employer can provide the product to the employees. They get a full deduction for it. As I mentioned earlier, the employee's not taxed on it. So a great benefit from both perspectives where the employer gets to deduct the expense, the employee gets it, and there's no tax, versus that employee trying to pay for it on their own. So that's the beauty of the traditional policies. And there are a few that will provide this return of premium to the employee should they not use it. I think that's the thing that you've seen with some of your clients, Shannon, that they're concerned about buying traditional long-term care insurance because they're afraid, well, what if I don't use it? I spend all that money.
Right. And, from our perspective, we see so many people needing these policies and being put in such financial hardship because they can't pay for long-term care services if they don't have insurance, that we think it's worth it either way. But that return of premium product really kind of solves that problem for people and puts them at ease knowing that whether I need it or not, it's a good investment.
Right. And again, those are a few of those. There's not many, but there are a few of them out there. The other types of products that we're seeing employers offer are really life-based products that have long-term care riders or chronic illness riders, critical illness riders on them. So those become some other programs that employers are using. They don't have the same tax benefits because they're traditionally life insurance-based products. So the employer, if they paid for it, would still get a deduction, but the employee it's going to be taxable basically to them because we want that death benefit to be tax-free.
Right. Now, some of the benefits of those life products with the long-term care riders is that because it's a life insurance policy, that if you don't need long-term care, you do have that death benefit for your beneficiaries. So when you pass away, that policy is going to be put to use at some time or another. But the downside can be, one example is somebody has to go to a nursing home at age 85 and they're there for a few years and they use up the entire benefit. And then when they pass away, they had thought that they could pass on some money to their children and there's very little left of that death benefit. So that's really the downside. So it just depends on your personal situation and what your employees need. Another really good option for covering yourself for long-term care.
You're absolutely right, Shannon. The other thing on some of those products is that they do have guarantee issue. So there's certain amounts that an employee can purchase where they're not having to go through underwriting So for somebody who maybe couldn't get a traditional policy, these policies could be a benefit. But the important thing as an employer is to understand that you can provide benefits to your employees that will help protect them. And the important thing from the employee perspective is that your employer has the tax bracket and the wherewithal to, in a lot of cases, help you plan for these costs as you prepare for retirement or even just to protect yourself while you're still working.
Right. And as an employer, whether or not you have the ability to help your employees out with some of these things financially, a lot of things that we hear from employees of our clients is that just having the education and knowing how to plan is extremely valuable. So whatever position you're in as an employer, having that education piece, we think, is really important. And it's something that your employees will appreciate.
Yeah, it'll really set you apart. I know the employers that do this, again, since a lot don't, it does set them apart. And in today's competitive job market, it can be a difference maker, especially for employees who may be a little bit older and really looking at this type of coverage.
Yep. If you're an employer or if you are part of the decision-making process when it comes to employee benefits, please consider the things that we talked about today. If you're not, and these are some things that you wish your employer would think about, feel free to show them this video. If you want to become a client and talk to us about some of your options, go ahead and visit the link in the description below and apply.
So for the best information on healthcare and retirement, click the subscribe button below and click the bell to be notified of future videos.
Don't forget to like this video.